My name is Elsa, and I am 31 years old. I was sitting in a lawyer's office watching my husband sign our divorce papers with the biggest smile I had ever seen on his face. He even whistled softly as he put down his pen. What he did not know was that the next page would change everything. I had been waiting for this moment for 3 months. Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever been underestimated by someone who should have loved you. This story is for you. I lived in Seattle, Washington, in a 2-story house in the quiet suburbs. On paper, I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer. That was the story everyone knew, including my husband Garrett. But the truth was far more complicated than that. Most of my days were spent working remotely for a company I had co-founded. A company that had grown beyond anything I had ever imagined. But I kept that part of my life hidden, tucked away like a secret I was not ready to share. I drove a 10-year-old Toyota Camry. I wore clothes from regular stores, nothing fancy, nothing that screamed wealth. I did not own designer bags or expensive jewelry. To anyone looking at me, I was just an ordinary woman living an ordinary life. There was a reason for all of this. I grew up in a middle-class family in Minnesota. My parents taught me that money does not define a person. They raised me to value character over cash, and those lessons stayed with me. When I met Garrett 7 years ago, I made a decision. I wanted to be loved for who I was, not for what I had in my bank account. So I kept my financial success a secret. I wanted to see if Garrett could love the real me, the woman behind the simple clothes and the old car. I was 5 feet 6 inches tall with light brown hair and green eyes. Nothing remarkable about my appearance. Just a regular woman who blended into any crowd. That was exactly how I wanted it. Garrett was 34 years old, a sales director at a major pharmaceutical company. He made around $170,000 a year, and he never let me forget it. In his mind, he was the financial backbone of our household. The provider. The one who made everything possible. He had a way of reminding me of my place. Little comments that stung more than he probably realized. He would say things like, "How much do you even make from those little logos you design?" Or, "It is a good thing you have me otherwise. How would you survive in an expensive city like Seattle?" And my personal favorite, "All my friends have wives who are doctors and lawyers. I have to explain that you do freelance work." Garrett loved to show off. He drove a BMW. He wore a Rolex watch. He played golf with his bosses and bragged about his connections. Image was everything to him. He stood 6 feet 1 inch tall with dark hair always neatly styled. Even at home, he dressed like he was about to walk into a boardroom. He looked successful because looking successful was his entire identity. What Garrett never knew was that his freelance designer wife was actually a secret co-founder of one of the fastest-growing financial technology companies in the country. Let me take you back 6 years to when Garrett and I had only been dating for about a year. I reconnected with my college friend Theo Langston at a reunion event. Theo had a brilliant idea for a personal finance app, something that could help everyday people manage their money better. He needed someone to help with the initial concept and design the user interface. That someone was me. We called it Nest Hub. I contributed the original idea framework and designed everything you see when you open the app. Theo handled the technical side and the fundraising. We were a perfect team. At first it was just a side project, something I worked on during evenings and weekends. But then something incredible happened. The app took off. Users loved it. Within 2 years, we had millions of downloads. Investors came knocking. Venture capital firms wanted in. By year 3, Nest Hub was valued at $80 million. I owned 32% of the company as a silent co-founder. My name was not in press releases or magazine articles. Theo was the public face, the CEO everyone knew. I preferred it that way. When people asked about my work, I told them I did freelance design for a small startup. Technically, it was not a lie. I just left out the part where I owned a third of that startup. The money from Nest Hub went into a separate account that Garrett knew nothing about. I never touched it for our daily expenses. I never bought anything extravagant. I lived exactly the same way I had before the company became successful. As the years passed, Nest Hub continued to grow. After our Series C funding round, the company was valued at $450 million. Do you know what 32% of $450 million is? $144 million. That was my net worth. $144 million sitting in investments and equity, completely invisible to my husband, who thought he was supporting a struggling freelancer. For 6 years, I lived as an ordinary woman. I endured Garrett's condescending comments in silence. I let him believe he was the successful one in our marriage. I was about to find out. But not in the way I expected. 8 months before the day I sat in that lawyer's office, something in my marriage began to shift. Garrett started traveling more for work. Business trips, he called them. 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes more. He would pack his suitcase with an enthusiasm that seemed strange for someone who claimed to hate being away from home. He came home later and later. Drinks with clients, he would explain, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. Networking events. Industry dinners. There was always an explanation. I noticed he stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings. The little ritual we had maintained for years simply disappeared. Now he just grabbed his keys and called out a quick, "See you later," on his way out. When I cooked dinner, he would wave his hand dismissively. "Already ate," he would say. "You go ahead without me." Our physical relationship became almost non-existent. Whenever I tried to initiate anything, Garrett had an excuse ready. He was tired. He was stressed about work. He had an early meeting the next day. I started noticing other things too. Garrett began going to the gym religiously, something he had never done before. He bought new clothes, updated his wardrobe with fitted shirts and trendy jackets. He started wearing cologne I did not recognize. One evening, I found a concert ticket stub in his jacket pocket while doing laundry. It was for a show that happened 2 weeks earlier, a show I had not attended with him. When I asked about it, Garrett barely looked up from his phone. "Oh," that he said casually. "One of my employees left it in my car. I already returned it." I wanted to believe him. I had no concrete reason not to. So I pushed the suspicion down and told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe the problem was me. Maybe I had been too focused on my secret work with Nest Hub. Maybe I had neglected my marriage without realizing it. I made a mental promise to be more present, to be a better wife, to save whatever was left of our relationship. I had no idea how wrong I was about where the real problem lay. A few months later, Garrett's company held their annual gala. It was a big event, a chance for employees to network and show off to executives. Garrett insisted I come with him. I wore a simple navy dress. Nothing flashy, nothing expensive. Even though I could have afforded anything in any store I chose, something modest. That was just who I was. At the venue, Garrett introduced me to his colleagues with barely concealed embarrassment. "This is my wife Elsa," he would say. "She does freelance work." The way he said freelance made it sound like a disease. Throughout the evening, I noticed a woman who seemed to be everywhere Garrett was. Her name was Sienna Holt. She was 29 years old, a marketing manager at the company. Blonde hair in perfect waves, a tight red dress that left little to the imagination, a smile that seemed permanently fixed on Garrett. Sienna touched Garrett's arm when she talked to him. She laughed at his jokes like he was the funniest person in the room. She leaned in close when she whispered something in his ear. When Garrett introduced us, he could not hide the pride in his voice. "This is Sienna," he said, "the best marketing manager on our team." Sienna looked me up and down. Her eyes traveled from my simple dress to my flat shoes to my understated jewelry. I could see her assessment in that single glance. She had measured me and found me wanting. I felt like an outsider at my own husband's party. Like I did not belong. Like I was an embarrassment he had to drag along. On the drive home, Garrett confirmed my suspicions. "You should dress better next time," he said, eyes on the road. People were asking me why my wife looked so plain. I said nothing, but somewhere inside me, something cracked. 5 months before the divorce papers were signed, everything became painfully clear. It was late at night. Garrett had fallen asleep on the couch after coming home from another late dinner. His phone sat on the coffee table, lighting up with notification after notification. I had no intention of looking. I was just going to move it so the light would not disturb him. But then I saw the name on the screen. Sienna. And the message preview that came with it. I miss you. Tonight was amazing. See you Thursday, babe. My hand trembled as I picked up the phone. I knew his passcode because he had asked me to check his work email once when he was driving. He never thought to change it. I opened the messages. Hundreds of them. Flirty texts. I love yous. Planning their next meeting. Inside jokes I did not understand. Photos of them together at restaurants, at hotels, and places I had never been. And then the other photos. The ones that made my stomach turn. Their affair had been going on for at least 6 months. Maybe longer. I took screenshots of everything. Every message. Every photo. Every piece of evidence. I sent them all to my personal email. Then I placed the phone back exactly where I found it. I walked to the bedroom, lay down on my side of the bed, and stared at the ceiling until morning. I did not cry. I felt something strange instead. A hollowness. An emptiness where the shock should have been. Maybe part of me had known all along. Maybe I had just been waiting for proof. Now I had it. And now I knew the truth. Garrett had never really loved me. He loved the idea of having a wife who needed him. A wife who was beneath him. A wife who made him feel important and successful by comparison. I was not going to confront him. Not yet. Not until I had a plan. If Garrett wanted to play games, I would play along. But I would play by my own rules. The morning after I discovered the messages, I called Theo. My voice was steady as I explained the situation. The affair. The lies. The way Garrett had been treating me for years. Theo listened without interrupting, and when I finished, I could hear the anger in his silence. "What do you need?" he finally asked. "Whatever it is, I am here." "I need the best divorce lawyer you know," I said. Theo gave me a name. Weston Drake. He was a specialist in high net worth divorces, the kind of lawyer who represented CEOs and celebrities. His office was in downtown Seattle, and his reputation was impeccable. I met Weston 3 days later. His office was on the 32nd floor of a glass tower, all leather furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows. He looked exactly like you would expect a top-tier attorney to look. Silver hair, expensive suit, a handshake that meant business. I told him everything. About Nest Hub and my hidden ownership. About Garrett's condescending attitude for 6 years. About Sienna and the affair. When I finished, Weston actually smiled. "You are the most interesting client I have ever had," he said. "We are going to handle this perfectly." Weston laid out the situation clearly. Garrett and I had no prenuptial agreement. That was something I had not insisted on because I wanted to test whether he truly loved me. In retrospect, it was naive. But it was also about to work in an unexpected way. My Nest Hub shares had gained most of their value during our marriage. Legally, Garrett could claim a portion if he knew about them. But here was the thing. Garrett did not know. And if he filed for divorce believing he was the primary earner, believing I was just a struggling freelancer with nothing to my name, he would structure the entire settlement around that assumption. Weston's strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Let Garrett file first. Let him think he is in control. Let him propose a settlement based on what he believes my assets are worth. Do not reveal the Nest Hub shares until he has already signed. Once his signature was on the agreement, it would be legally binding. He could not go back and demand more. He would be locked into whatever deal he thought he was getting. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Weston asked. "Some might call it a trap." I looked him straight in the eye. "He trapped me with lies for years," I said. "This is just showing him the truth." The next 4 months were the hardest of my life. I had to keep living with Garrett. Keep pretending everything was normal. Keep being the dutiful wife he thought I was. Every night I cooked dinner and asked about his day. I smiled when he talked about his important meetings and his impressive deals. I nodded when he reminded me how lucky I was to have him. Inside, I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the evidence in his face and watch him squirm. But I held back. I had to. I started recording our conversations. Weston had advised me to document as much as possible. I also installed a small camera in Garrett's home office. The footage it captured was damning. Phone calls with Sienna, discussions about their future together, jokes about the wife who had no idea. One recording in particular haunted me. Garrett on the phone with Sienna laughing about how easy this was going to be. "She does not suspect a thing," he said. "And honestly, what is she going to do? She has nothing without me." I saved every file, every recording, every piece of evidence. My case was building piece by piece. Meanwhile, I kept in touch with Theo. Nest Hub had just closed another funding round. The new valuation was $500 million. My shares were now worth $160 million. I asked Theo to keep everything confidential until I gave the word. He understood. 3 months before the divorce, Garrett came home early one evening. He sat across from me at the kitchen table with a serious expression, the kind of look someone practices in the mirror before delivering rehearsed lines. "Elsa," he said, "I think we need to talk. I have been feeling like this marriage is not working anymore. I want a divorce." I made my face show just enough surprise. Not too much, just enough to make him feel powerful. "Is there someone else?" I asked quietly. He did not even hesitate. "No, I just need my own space." I nodded slowly as if processing this devastating news. "I understand," I said. "If that is what you want, I will agree to the divorce." Garrett blinked. He had clearly expected more resistance. Tears, maybe. Begging, but I gave him none of that. He recovered quickly, his confidence returning. "Good," he said. "I will make sure everything is fair. You will get enough to be comfortable." I almost laughed. Enough to be comfortable. From the man who thought he was doing me a favor. "Thank you," I said instead. "That means a lot." Garrett nodded, satisfied. He had no idea that he had just walked into a trap he would never escape. Garrett hired his own lawyer, a man named Bradley Shaw. Bradley was competent but unremarkable. He had no idea who he was really up against. The first meeting between lawyers took place at Weston's office. I was there playing my role perfectly. The quiet wife, the one without resources, the one who just wanted this to be over. Bradley presented Garrett's proposal. Garrett would keep the house. He was the one paying most of the mortgage after all. Garrett would keep the BMW and the primary savings account. I would receive $20,000 as a settlement and my old Toyota Camry. No monthly support, because as Bradley put it, Mrs. Palmer is capable of working. It was insulting, degrading, exactly what I expected from a man who thought his wife was worthless. Weston played his part beautifully. He kept a neutral expression, then turned to me. "Elsa, what do you think?" I made my voice small. "I just want this to be over quickly." Bradley smiled at Garrett. They exchanged a look that said, "This is going to be easy." They had no idea. While the legal proceedings moved forward, Garrett was living his double life with complete confidence. I knew this because of what Sienna posted on social media. Carefully cropped photos that did not show her companion's face. Check-ins at expensive restaurants. Captions about being so happy with someone special. But I also had other sources. Dominic, the private investigator Weston had recommended, was keeping tabs on Garrett's movements. He documented everything. The visits to Sienna's apartment, the gifts Garrett bought her with money from our joint account, the plans they were making for their future. One detail stood out. Garrett had already bought an engagement ring, $15,000 worth of diamond purchased with our shared savings. He was planning to propose to Sienna the moment our divorce was final. The audacity was almost impressive. 2 weeks before the signing date, I did something that surprised even myself. I reached out to Garrett's mother. Patricia Palmer was a kind woman who had always treated me well. She had welcomed me into the family from day one, calling me the daughter she never had. She deserved to know the truth. We met at a quiet cafe far from where anyone might recognize us. I brought copies of everything: the messages, the photos, the financial records showing money transferred to Sienna. Patricia's face went pale as she read through the evidence. By the end, she was crying. "I raised him better than this," she whispered. "At least I thought I did." I did not blame her. None of this was her fault. I also told her about Nest Hub, about the wealth I had hidden, about why I had kept it secret. She looked at me with something like wonder. "You wanted to know if he loved you for you," she said, "and he failed the test." I nodded. He failed completely. Patricia reached across the table and took my hand. "No matter what happens," she said, "you are still family to me. And Russell feels the same way. Garrett does not deserve you." Her support meant more than I could express. When the moment came, I would not be alone. The night before the signing, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and looked at myself. I did not see a victim. I did not see a woman who had been fooled. I saw someone who had been patient, someone who had planned, someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Tomorrow, Garrett would learn what it felt like to underestimate the wrong person. I was ready. The morning arrived with perfect weather. Clear blue skies, warm sunshine, the kind of day that felt like a fresh start. I dressed carefully. A gray dress, elegant but understated. Hair pulled back neatly. Minimal makeup. I wanted to look exactly like the woman Garrett thought I was. Plain, simple, forgettable. We drove separately to Weston's office. The building gleamed in the morning light, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. 32 floors up, my future was waiting. Garrett arrived in his BMW wearing his best black suit. He actually brought flowers. Roses, the kind you buy at a grocery store when you want to look thoughtful, without making much effort. Outside the conference room, he handed them to me with a smile that made my skin crawl. "Thank you for being so cooperative about all this," he said. "I hope we can still be friends afterward." I took the flowers and managed a small smile. "Of course." We walked into the conference room together. Weston sat at one end of the long table, legal documents spread before him. Bradley sat across from him, looking pleased with himself. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seattle stretched out below us. Ferries crossing the Sound. The Space Needle in the distance. A beautiful view for an ugly business. Weston began the proceedings with professional detachment. He walked through each section of the divorce agreement, explaining the terms in clear legal language. The house would go to Garrett Palmer. The BMW would remain with Garrett Palmer. The primary savings account would remain with Garrett Palmer. Elsa Palmer would receive $20,000 and one Toyota Camry. With each item, Garrett's smile grew wider. He was getting everything he wanted. The house he would share with Sienna. The car that matched his image. The money he thought was rightfully his. He signed page after page with enthusiasm. At one point, he actually whistled softly. A happy little tune from a man who believed he was winning. I watched him sign. Each stroke of his pen was another nail in his own coffin. When he finished the second to last page, he pushed the documents toward me with a magnanimous gesture. "Your turn," he said. I picked up my pen. Slowly, deliberately, I signed my name on each page where indicated. Garrett could barely contain his satisfaction. He glanced at Bradley with a look that said, "I told you this would be easy." Weston gathered the signed pages and straightened them into a neat pile. "There is one final matter," he said. "As required by Washington state law, we need to read the net worth declaration to confirm both parties have disclosed their assets." Garrett waved his hand dismissively. Yes, let us get it over with." Weston nodded. "Mr. Palmer, your declared net worth is $452,000. Is this correct?" Garrett sat up a little straighter, proud of the number. "Correct," he confirmed. Weston made a note, then continued. "Mrs. Palmer, your declared net worth is—" Garrett was already checking his phone, barely paying attention. He had heard this part before. $15,000 in a checking account. The sum total of his pathetic wife's existence. Weston's voice cut through the room like a blade. $160,342,000. Silence. Garrett's head snapped up. His phone slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the table. "What did you just say?" Weston repeated the number slowly, clearly savoring each word. $160,342,000. Garrett let out a strange laugh. "This is a joke, right? She does freelance work. She designs logos. There is no way she has that kind of money." Weston slid a document across the table. "This is the official valuation of Mrs. Palmer's equity stake in Nest Hub Incorporated. 32% ownership in a company currently valued at $500 million. The valuation was conducted by Ernst & Young and is legally certified." Garrett grabbed the document. His eyes scanned the pages frantically. Nest Hub, the financial app, one of the most successful fintech companies in America. His face went white. He looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, complete and utter disbelief. Nest Hub, he could barely form the words. "You work for Nest Hub." I met his gaze calmly. "No. I co-founded Nest Hub 6 years ago, before we were married." Garrett's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. His brain was trying to process what had just happened. He had signed away his claim to half of $160 million. He had accepted a settlement designed for a woman with nothing when he could have demanded $80 million or more. The documents in front of him suddenly looked very different. Not a victory, a catastrophe. He jumped to his feet so fast his chair fell backward. "Cancel it," he shouted at Bradley. "Tear it up. I am not signing this anymore." Bradley's face was ashen. He had no idea his client's wife was worth 9 figures. He had walked into this negotiation completely blind. "Mr. Palmer," Bradley said carefully, "you have already signed. The agreement is legally binding." Garrett slammed his hands on the table. "I did not know. She hid this from me. That has to be fraud or something." Weston spoke with the calm authority of someone who had anticipated this exact reaction. "Mrs. Palmer disclosed her full net worth on the final page of the agreement. The same page you signed. You had the opportunity to review all documents before signing. You chose not to. There is no legal basis to invalidate this agreement." Garrett's face twisted. He spun toward me, and for a moment I saw something frightening in his eyes. "You tricked me," he hissed. "You lied to me for 6 years." I stood up slowly. My voice was steady. "I never lied to you, Garrett. I told you I did freelance work for a startup. That was true. You just never bothered to ask any follow-up questions. You never cared enough about my life to learn more." His fists clenched. "But why? Why hide it? I wanted to know if you loved me, for me," I said simply. "Not for my money. And now I have my answer." The realization hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back a step. "I loved you," he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. "No, you did not." I shook my head slowly. "You loved feeling superior to me. You loved having a wife you could look down on. You loved telling your friends that I was just a freelancer while you were the big success." I took a step toward him. "You never asked about my dreams. You never supported my work. You never once made me feel like an equal partner in this marriage. And then you cheated on me with a woman who made you feel even more important than I did." Garrett's face crumpled. The confident, arrogant man I had married was gone. In his place stood someone small and desperate. "We can fix this," he said, reaching for my hand. "Forget the papers. I made a mistake. I love you, Elsa. I have always loved you." I pulled away from his touch. "You love what I am worth," I said. "But you never loved who I am." I gathered my purse and walked toward the door. At the threshold, I turned back one last time. "You wanted this divorce, Garrett. You wanted to be free of what you thought was a burden. Congratulations. You got exactly what you asked for. And you just lost the biggest deal of your life." I walked out of the conference room and did not look back. Behind me, I heard Garrett collapse into his chair. The sound of a man who had finally realized the magnitude of his mistake. His smile was gone, and it was never coming back. In the days following our meeting at Weston's office, Garrett fell apart. I heard from mutual friends that he sat in his BMW for 2 hours after I left. Just sat there in the parking garage, unable to drive, unable to move, staring at nothing. He called Bradley Shaw repeatedly over the next few days. There had to be a way out. Some loophole. Some technicality that would let him undo what he had signed. Bradley gave him the same answer every time. The agreement was airtight. Garrett had signed willingly in the presence of witnesses after being given full opportunity to review the documents. No court in Washington would invalidate it. Garrett did the math over and over. If he had divorced me properly with full disclosure of assets, he would have been entitled to half of what I accumulated during our marriage. My Nest Hub shares had grown from nearly nothing to $160 million while we were together. Half of that was $80 million. $80 million he had signed away because he was too arrogant to pay attention, too eager to get rid of the wife he thought was beneath him. Instead, he got to keep a house with a mortgage he could barely afford and a car that was already depreciating. The worst part for Garrett was not just the money. It was knowing that everyone else would eventually learn what he had done. He ran to Sienna first. She was supposed to be his consolation prize, his fresh start with a woman who appreciated him. He showed up at her apartment 3 days after the signing, ready to pour out his heart. But when he tried his key, it did not work. She had changed the locks. He called her. She actually answered, which surprised him. Her voice was cold in a way he had never heard before. "Garrett, I think we need to take a break." He could not believe what he was hearing. "A break? What are you talking about? I thought we were going to be together after the divorce." Sienna sighed. "The divorce where you gave away $160 million because you were too stupid to read the paperwork," he tried to explain. Tried to defend himself. She did not let him finish. "I am not interested in being with someone who makes decisions like that," she said. "You had everything and you threw it away. What does that say about your judgment?" The line went dead. Garrett stood outside her door for 20 minutes, calling again and again. She never picked up. A week later, he heard through office gossip that Sienna was already dating someone new. The sales director at a competing pharmaceutical company. A man who made twice what Garrett made. She had never loved him. She loved what she thought he could give her. And now that he had proven himself a fool, she was gone. I took no pleasure in Garrett's relationship falling apart. But I would be lying if I said I was surprised. People who are attracted to status tend to leave when the status disappears. 1 week after the divorce was finalized, I went to visit Russell and Lorraine Palmer, Garrett's parents. They already knew about Nest Hub. Patricia had told her husband everything after our cafe meeting. But I wanted to show them the full picture. The affair, the messages, the photos, the $15,000 engagement ring bought with money from our joint account. Lorraine cried. Russell sat in silence, his jaw tight with anger. When everything was laid out before them, Russell finally spoke. He called Garrett from the landline in the living room. The conversation lasted 30 minutes. I could only hear Russell's side, but his voice was loud enough to understand the general message. Disappointment, shame, disgust at what his son had become. When he hung up, Russell turned to me. "He is not welcome in this house until he learns what integrity means," he said. "You are welcome anytime." Lorraine took my hands in hers. "You will always be family to us," she said through her tears. "Divorce papers do not change that. Their support meant everything. In a way, I had lost a husband, but gained parents who truly cared about me." As the weeks passed, Garrett's professional life began to crumble alongside his personal one. Word spreads quickly in corporate environments. The story of the sales director who accidentally signed away $160 million became legendary. People whispered about it in conference rooms. They joked about it at happy hours. Garrett Palmer. The guy who divorced a secret multimillionaire because he thought she was worthless. His colleagues looked at him differently now, not with respect, but with a kind of pitying amusement. His judgment was questioned, his decisions second-guessed. Sienna had already transferred to another company, so he could not even avoid the reminders of his failed affair. 3 months after our divorce was final, Garrett was demoted. Sales director became senior sales executive. A smaller title, a smaller office, a 40% pay cut. The BMW became too expensive to maintain. He sold it and bought a used Honda Accord. The house that he had fought so hard to keep was suddenly a burden. The mortgage payments that once seemed manageable now felt crushing. Last I heard, he was considering renting out rooms just to make ends meet. Everything Garrett had valued about himself, his image, his status, his superiority, had crumbled to dust, and it was entirely his own doing. The first few weeks after the divorce were strange. I moved out of the house I had shared with Garrett and into a penthouse apartment in Bellevue with views of Lake Washington. It had floor-to-ceiling windows, a wraparound terrace, and more space than one person could possibly need. I bought it outright. No mortgage, no monthly payments, just mine. But at night, I still woke up at 2 a.m. and reached for the empty side of the bed. Not because I missed Garrett, just because 6 years of habit do not disappear overnight. I started seeing a therapist, someone who specialized in helping people process toxic relationships. It felt strange at first talking to a stranger about my feelings, but it helped. My therapist told me something that stuck with me. "You are not responsible for his choices," she said. Keeping your success private was not deception. It was self-protection. You wanted authentic love, and there is nothing wrong with that. She was right. I had not lied to Garrett. I had simply not volunteered information that he never bothered to ask about. He had 6 years to show genuine interest in my work. 6 years to ask questions. 6 years to be curious about my life. He never did. Not once. 2 months after the divorce, I made a decision that changed everything. I was done hiding. Theo had been asking me for years to take a more public role at Nest Hub, to be recognized for my contributions, to let the world know that the company had 2 founders, not 1. I had always said no. But now there was no reason to stay in the shadows. Nest Hub held a press conference to announce our Series D funding round. The company was now valued at $700 million. My shares were worth over $220 million. For the first time, I stood on that stage. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. My face appeared on screens across the conference room. Theo introduced me as the co-founder and chief creative officer who had been instrumental in Nest Hub's success from day one. The quiet partner who had shaped everything from the original concept to the user experience that millions of people loved. Afterward, journalists asked why I had stayed hidden for so long. I valued my privacy, I told them. I wanted to build something meaningful without the distractions of public attention. Now I am ready to share my story. The coverage was overwhelming. Articles appeared in major business publications. Interviews requests poured in. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know about the woman behind Nest Hub. The narrative that emerged was powerful. A female co-founder who built a billion-dollar company while letting others take the spotlight. A woman who valued substance over image. I became an accidental role model. Other women entrepreneurs reached out to me sharing their own stories of being overlooked and underestimated. I tried to respond to as many as I could. One message in particular stood out. It was from a woman in Denver who had discovered her husband was cheating on her. She had been afraid to leave because she had no money of her own. After reading about you, she wrote, I realized I needed to build my own foundation. I started a small business last month. Thank you for showing me it is possible. I cried when I read that email. Good tears. Healing tears. I established a foundation to support women entrepreneurs. We provided grants and mentorship to female founders who were just getting started. Every check I signed felt like a small act of justice. A year after my divorce, I found myself ready for something I had not expected. Love. His name was Julian, 35 years old, an architect who designed sustainable buildings. We met through mutual friends at a charity event. Julian did not know who I was when we first talked. He did not read business magazines or follow tech news. He just saw a woman standing alone by the window looking thoughtful. We talked for hours that night, about architecture and art and the way cities shape the people who live in them. He asked about my work, and I told him I was in tech, keeping it vague on purpose. Over the following months, I fell for him slowly. His kindness, his curiosity. The way he listened when I talked, really listened like what I said mattered. When I finally told him the truth about Nest Hub and my net worth, I braced myself for his reaction. Julian was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head and laughed softly. "I do not care how much money you have, Elsa," he said. "I care about who you are. That is what I fell in love with." It was the response I had been waiting 6 years to hear. The response Garrett could never have given. Julian and I are still together. We take things slowly, neither of us in a rush. But for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about the future. 14 months have passed since that day in the lawyer's office. I am 33 years old, wealthy beyond what I ever imagined, and happier than I have been in years. Sometimes I think about Garrett, not with anger anymore, just a distant kind of sadness. He still lives in the house we once shared, alone, struggling to make payments on a home full of memories he cannot escape. He reached out to me a few times, texts asking if we could talk, emails apologizing for everything. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. The lessons from my marriage stay with me every day. No one has the right to define your worth. Not a husband, not a boss, not society. You know who you are even if others cannot see it. Sometimes silence is power. I spent 6 years letting Garrett believe he was the successful one. In the end, that silence became my greatest weapon. The people who look down on you when you have nothing will never deserve you when you have everything. Garrett wanted a wife who made him feel important. He could not see that I was important all along. Losing the wrong relationship is not a loss. It is a liberation. I stood on my terrace last night watching the lights of Seattle shimmer across the lake. The woman I was a year ago would not recognize the woman I am now. Stronger, freer, more myself than I have ever been. Garrett signed those divorce papers with a grin ear to ear, convinced he was escaping a burden. He never realized he was giving up the greatest fortune of his life, and I do not mean the money. I mean the chance to love and be loved by someone who would have given him everything if he had only seen her clearly. But he could not, and that is his loss to carry forever. So that is my story. The story of how I discovered that the person who is supposed to love you most might be the one who sees you least. Garrett signed those papers grinning ear to ear. He thought he was winning. He thought he was finally free of the wife who dragged him down. But when my net worth appeared on that final page, his smile died. And in that moment he realized he had just lost the biggest deal of his life. Not because of the money. Money comes and goes. He lost something much more valuable. The chance to be loved by someone who would have stood by him through anything. Someone who wanted nothing more than to be seen and appreciated for who she truly was. He threw that away for an affair, for his ego, for the image he thought mattered more than substance, and now he has to live with that choice forever. If you are watching this and you have ever been underestimated, I want you to know something. Your value does not depend on whether others can see it. Some people will never recognize what you are worth, no matter how much you show them. That is not your failure. That is theirs. Keep building. Keep growing. Keep becoming the person you are meant to be. And one day when you are standing in your power, they will finally understand what they missed. By then it will be too late for them. But it will be just the beginning for you. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a relationship where someone underestimated you? What helped you find the strength to know your own worth? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and maybe find the courage they need. And if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We are building a community here of people who support each other, and I would love for you to be part of it. If you know someone who needs to hear this message today, someone who has been made to feel small by someone who should have lifted them up, please share this video with them. Sometimes knowing you are not alone is the first step toward finding your strength. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you for listening to my story. I am sending you all my best wishes for love, for success, and for the courage to know your own worth even when others cannot see it. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, you are more valuable than anyone who makes you feel small will ever understand.